Welcome to Go Solo Live.
Don't you mean go solo live? Have you ever been asked why on earth would you travel alone? Go Solo Live not only answers that question, but celebrates life as a midlife solo traveler. This is a safe place for women to come together to reminisce about their travels, encourage others to travel, and to dig into the real lessons learned from these journeys. Now join Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel as she and her guests share stories of the solo travelers of midlife women.
Hello, sisters, and welcome to Go Solo Live. This is Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel. It's time to grab a cup of coffee and sit back and enjoy my conversation with Cindy Ross. She'll share her stories about starting travel at age 13 and how she's celebrating retirement at 38. I'm so excited that Cindy was able to join us today. Everyone, welcome Cindy Ross. Cindy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Jennifer, for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you. I've been looking forward to this since we met at Women's Travel Fest.
I can't believe that was already 2 months ago.
Isn't that crazy?
So I love New Orleans, and the Women's Travel Fest this year was held in New Orleans. So I got to get my fill of all the good things down there. What's your favorite part of New Orleans?
Oh man, I want to be a foodie, but I'm like so into fitness, and it's really hard in New Orleans. But I would have to say just the culture. I mean, like I love just the vibes of the good music, and I'm a huge fan of Frenchman Street, which is in the Marigny, and all like the big band music, and I just love it. It feeds my soul for sure.
Absolutely. And I love that. So you're feeding your soul rather than feeding your stomach.
Exactly.
I think that works very well. That's great. Well, we had a chance to chat just a little bit at the summit or at the festival, but tell me a little bit more about you. Let my listeners learn who you are and why we got you here today.
All right. So, it's all around travel. And I was a professional tennis player, turned pro at the age of 17, and actually started traveling the world by myself at 13. I was being sent all over to tennis tournaments. And of course, that fed my travel bug and introduced me into a whole world that I absolutely fell in love with. And grew up, always into fitness, and I live with rheumatoid arthritis. I got sick. That's what ended my tennis career. I was 19 when I got sick, and so ended my tennis career. 26 surgeries of 110-pound weight gain, weight loss, and started a fitness business. And I've been teaching fitness abroad at these resorts for about 18 years. I was broke and I was trying to figure out a way to travel, and I found it in fitness, and it was awesome because I got to help people all over the world change their lives and their bodies and their minds. And I still do it to this day, and sold the fitness business, started a social media company, launched a travel agency. As you can tell, I'm an entrepreneur, but my goal was to be retired before 40. And I nailed it at 39. Oh, actually 38. So sold the gym right before I turned 39. And my husband and I have been married 18 years, and we live full time in a beautiful place called Orange Beach, Alabama. And we don't have kids, and we just travel.
Okay,
That's
my dear,
long, short of it.
you're a whirlwind, right? But this is the whole point, is I want people to hear all these amazing things that you've done. And so we're going to dig in a little bit more.
Okay.
And I want you to start, you started doing this solo travel thing when you were young. So that often means you've become acclimated to it. And the fears that a lot of people who haven't been traveling while they were young aren't the same. So as you think about people that you have encountered now through all of your travels, have you noticed the big difference between, well, that was never even an issue for me, and what are some of the things that you've seen come up?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely say, as a kid traveling, you don't have really any fears, and you let your guard down when you're on a vacation. But as we get older, and I can tell that, we don't have many days in our life, and you got to make every one count. And so I've learned as I'm getting older that I'm a little bit more hesitant and more careful with things that, might injure me or hurt me, because it seems like any injury I've ever had in my life has been on my travels on vacation, because you let your guard down a little bit because you don't think anything bad can happen. And that's probably one of the places that it can happen, because you're around more strangers and you're in a place that you don't know. And you just, I've learned just to be more on guard in my surroundings, and not about flaunting my pretty jewelry and wearing amazing clothes all the time, because being a woman, and especially a solo traveler, you got to be careful and watch out for yourself, because things can happen in a blink of an eye and you can't take it back. So you definitely have to be careful.
What's the scariest thing that you've encountered, or the most frightful type of experience that you've had while traveling?
Luckily I haven't encountered too much. I would probably say Italy, we got really freaked out by one of the locals was telling us how bad the pickpocketing is, and how everything can be gone just so fast. You turn around and their hands are in your backpacks, and it's just happened so fast. Nothing happened, luckily, but you could tell with the stares and the glares that the potential was for sure there.
Absolutely. And that's not an uncommon threat in many urban areas.
No, not at all. And I mean, it can happen whether you're in the States or whether you're out of the country. I lived in a city called Mobile, Alabama. That's where my business was, and it thrived. But I probably lived more in fear there than I did anywhere I've been in the world, because our crime rate was so incredibly high. It's actually one of the unsafest cities in the U.S. So people would always warn me, going to Central America and going to all these, third world countries. And it was literally, I'm in October this year. I'm backpacking through Central America. Everybody's warning us about Honduras and warning us about crossing the borders. They had 13 homicides in Mobile for the month of October. So I'm So it's just, you cannot believe everything that you hear. There's a lot of places I haven't been in this world, and, people that usually it's the people that don't travel that hear it in the news or the press. And of course it's always exaggerated, and it can scare you and it can be frightful, but that doesn't mean that you stop exploring or stop traveling. You got to just face it and see for yourself.
Well, and it's really about perspective. And I think, our fear of the unknown, and it's unfortunately, there's a lot of people who, I live in Wisconsin. There's a lot of people in Wisconsin who've never been to Chicago.
I know.
And so there's a mindset there, and that's okay. But if those are the people who I'm surrounding myself with when I'm talking about my travels, I'm going to get a certain response from them.
You will. And that's how it was for me. Right before I embarked on Central America, everybody that's never been. And honestly, I never felt not one time unsafe. Of course I didn't take my nice jewelry, and I wore ball caps a lot. And you kind of have to blend in with your surroundings so you don't stick out like a tourist. I'm not, dragging my camera out at every nook and cranny that I want to take a picture of. And, for the most part, when I was visiting there, the locals would say, as long as you're not standing out in the middle of the street with your shiny iPhone case holder on your phone, for the most part, you're fine. And it was, it was really good. And I've found most places that I've been in the world have been like that. I think travel, it just makes you more of a complete person. And all the travel quotes that I post all the time about how, your life is more rich because of travel, how, there's not enough money in the world to buy what travel gives you, the experiences. It's so true. All of that is true. It's your education, and you learn so much when you get out and about. And I encourage everyone to travel.
So if somebody were afraid of travel, and this is a little bit this isn't you for sure, but when people that you encounter, and because you're a travel agent, I'm sure you come across people who are well, I'm just not sure. What do you do to encourage them to step out of that comfort zone?
I have a client that I've been working with, and they really want to go to Mexico, her and some girlfriends, and it was right before the election, and they were asking me to search everything out, and they wanted to go this Christmas. Well, then with all the travel scares since then, they've actually backed away. So what I've been doing is trying to educate them. And that's what I would tell anyone, is to read as much as you can, read blog posts, read journals. And I've just been really trying to educate them on what's out there, what's in the area, that, letting them know that they're safe, they can go there. And I think just educating yourself on a destination that you want to go to make yourself feel more comfortable and not be scared of what you're hearing in the news all the time.
I'm 100% with you on that. So where would you suggest the best sources of education are for folks, especially if they have these safety concerns?
One journal that I've been reading a lot is called Travel Pulse. Do you know it? Have you heard of it?
No.
It's really good. Every day I get an email and it's journals, and I actually have a travel show that I'm starting next week, and that's one of my resources that I'm going to be using a lot, just because we actually get the news, and actually it's on Travel Pulse as well. Like if there's anything crazy going on in the world of travel, it goes there first. That way, if there's any danger, and I have a client there, it allows us to alert, the authorities and let them know, hey, I got someone there. But Travel Pulse is great for any information that you want to know.
Okay, so I actually want to flip this conversation just for a second.
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of travel agents. I know you're a travel agent. That's not why I booked you on the show today. But for me, there's been times where I like the DIY parts of travel. It's inspiring to me. It's invigorating. But I also love that there is some security that I've had when I've booked with travel agents before as well. And what you've just mentioned is really an important thing for people to keep in mind, is that up-to-date safety alert type of stuff. So I'd like to just take the conversation in a little bit of that direction of, in this day of DIY for travel, and especially when I'm working with solo travelers, and a lot of them, that's a huge point of pride for them, that they've DIY'd the whole thing. What are some of the advantages of using a travel agent?
Well, for one, just like I just said, I mean, so if you are doing it yourself, one thing that I did learn in Central America, and I would encourage everyone to do this, is to register yourself on the tourism board of every country that you're going into. Have you done that before?
I have.
Yeah. So that's really important. You put your dates of travel in. It's super easy to do online. So definitely, if you're doing it yourself, make sure that you are registering. We do it as travel agents. I do it for my clients. I kind of go over and beyond. I've always been big on customer service. So, with me, I just want you to show up and have fun and create memories. So I'm going to go over and beyond. If I send you on a place, I'm going to make sure that your transfers from the airport are taken care of, that you don't have to stress when you come off the airplane and worrying about getting to your hotel, especially if it's a late night and you're a solo traveler. Dinner reservations. Some people are a little intimidated with eating alone or knowing where to go. Yep. And so I like to really take care and make sure that reservations are taken care of, and just really taking the thought process out of it. So maybe if you are just looking for like a spiritual relaxation trip, that's what you're there for. And you're not having to stress about the getting tos and getting theirs on the trip, because that can be stressful if you are new to travel. I mean, I've been traveling forever, so subways don't intimidate me. None of that intimidates me, but I see people every day in airports that are completely lost in the navigation of an airport. I can't even imagine what they're going through in a big city with a subway system or a transit system trying to navigate their way around. Absolutely. So if I can take that stress away from them, that's what I'm there for.
That's awesome. Well, and I would have to say as well, it cracks me up sometimes that I'm working with people and they've decided that they're going to do their first solo trip and they're heading to Paris, and they don't speak the language, and they've never done public transportation in their own backyard. And it's just like, what you thinking?
Hey, let me give you a tip on Paris. Funny thing, I think my husband almost went to jail in the transit system of Paris, in the subway system. If you are in Paris, do not throw away your ticket once you get past the little spindle gate to go to the train, because they have checkpoints in there because they have hoppers that hop over. Yep. My husband threw it away because he doesn't like hanging on to things, and they wanted to fine us like $150. So make sure you do not throw away your ticket. Yeah, I can't imagine never traveling and going through the transit system of Paris.
Yeah, No, I appreciate that. And actually that tip applies in many places. I was down in Phoenix or Houston, one of those things, domestic. And the same thing happened where I had to have my ticket handy. And
Yes.
I thought, wow, I wasn't ready for that.
And Jennifer, I would recommend too. I mean, I know you have a lot of listeners on here, but especially if you're doing solo traveler and you're going to some of these big cities, go outside of the country, go and get familiar with it inside the country to where you have cell phone service and your family's just an hour away or 2 hours away where you feel a little bit more comfortable. I would get used to that, just navigating, because once you learn how to kind of navigate the maps, it's pretty uniformal everywhere else. So I would definitely get comfortable in the United States before I venture outside.
I agree. And I love when people are trying to embrace their sense of adventure and just go. But if that's your choice, if you're really going to go from like 0 to 60 in 2 days kind of thing, that's when you need outside assistance the most.
It's so true. It's so true. Yeah, I agree. Just be careful and be safe if you decide to do it, and just get familiar with it, because it is a lot. And when you're trying to navigate those maps, especially like if you're using an app on your phone or if you're looking up at, that's when you're most vulnerable for pickpocketing and things like that. And you got your back turned and you're not paying attention because you're so involved with the map. So just get familiar with it.
Exactly. And one of my favorite things to do when I get to a country for the first time or to wherever I'm going to be is I take some sort of tour, a walking tour of the city, a bicycle tour, sometimes a hop on, hop off, but I don't even jump off sometimes as much as to get a lay of the land, get my bearings straight, know where I'm staying in relation to other places where I want to go. And then I start to explore.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I agree. So many times we've done that whole, do it yourself, just jump right into it. And I mean, of course, that's why I'm a travel agent now, it's because I know how to do it. But we didn't do a lot of tours. For one, I was like, oh, they're expensive. I don't want to spend that kind of money, and I remember walking around Pompeii with the little Audible thing because I opted not to do the tour. And if you've ever done Pompeii, it is so confusing and we were so lost. And, I'd highly recommend doing the tours as well, because especially if you're in a place with so much culture and history, you're going to miss out a lot. And I think we just ended up like going to a bar. We got so frustrated with trying to figure out which way to go in Pompeii. And actually what I was telling you, we're doing a river cruise in June, and every day is a guided tour that is included in our trip. And that way you learn all about the history and the culture. And I'm super excited.
Well, and those are wonderful. So there's always a place where, it's great to go out and explore on your own. But when you have a professional who can give you the ins and outs, that's the person to ask your questions to. Where's the best place to go for dinner? Or who serves the best, waffles and fries when I was in Brussels? Or, where should I avoid?
That's exactly.
Those folks want you to have the best experience in their area as possible. And by giving you all that information, it makes a huge difference. So I'm a huge proponent. And it's great because then when you go to a place and you get that whole background, then you get to say, okay, well, I'd like a taste of this and a taste of that. It's like now it opens up the buffet.
It's so true. I agree. Yeah. I just think that there's a lot of places I would probably go back to that I've been that I feel like I've missed out on a few things, just because we just dive right in and go in circles until we learn it. And we're usually good at navigating, but we miss a lot too.
So what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned when you've been out doing your solo travel, Cindy?
You know what? My solo travel for me is getting to know myself. And I think I run so hard, as you can tell from our conversation before. I run really hard, really fast. I'm always 60 miles an hour, 90 to nothing. And it's really just taking the time to just relax and reflect and read. And there's so many trips that I've been on that I was going 90 to nothing. And I missed out on that chance for reflection, because I don't think that we have a lot of alone times in our life. And so for me, that solo travel, that's my alone time. That's me reconnecting with myself, reflecting and being thankful for things in my life. And so I think that's one of the biggest lessons. I mean, like every time that I know that I have a trip coming up that I am going to be alone, I download all my books that I want to read. And, I got my journal, and I just, I want to do all those things that really just bring me back, because I go so fast that I lose myself from time to time. And I'm such a workaholic. So I definitely lose myself.
Well, let's take another minute and really go through some of those things. I mean, I love that's important. When you're going solo, you're preparing, you're going with an intention. So you said you're downloading podcasts.
Yeah, I download podcasts. I download my favorite. I make a playlist for every trip, because that way I can tell people, hey, go follow me. Like I have one that says, follow me through Central America. And it's weird, quirky music that I might hear out and about that I probably wouldn't listen to in Orange Beach, Alabama, but it's really cool. And then, when I get home, I'm like, oh man, I remember where I was at when I heard that song. And it's just it's just fun. And I write a lot. And that was the whole reason I started my travel blog, which is now my travel agency. And I love to read, and I don't have time a lot in my everyday life to do those things. So I just really make sure that I'm prepared, and I might download a girl magazine or something. You gotta have some downtime where your brain's just not thinking.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm just prepared. And that way, if I have some time, maybe I'm sitting on a train, or if I'm sitting at the beach, I can open my book, or I can write. I've published 2 books, and I did both of them I wrote them both while I was away on vacation.
Well, I think that's really important, though. I love that you do a playlist. And I think that I can look at that in 2 ways. One would be a playlist while I'm going. And to me, music is so important. It really grounds me. It connects me. So there's the anticipatory playlist of, this is what I want to listen to while I'm gone. But then there's maybe even that after playlist. And there's been times where I've come home from a trip, and there's a few things that really are resonating with me, like really resonating. And that to me makes a difference as well, is to keep those songs, and oh my gosh, whenever I hear this song, I think about this trip.
Exactly. I love it. And you wouldn't believe the people that follow me along, because I document everything. I mean, I'm a social media queen, so I'm documenting everything about my whole trip. And so for them to be they feel like they're right there. And I reach a lot of people that would never travel, that would never venture out. So I try to give them the whole perspective, and, doing live videos and just having fun with it. I mean, I love everything about it. I love the journey. Like, there's no part of travel that I don't enjoy. Like even if I have a layover, I mean, of course I have, I'm like a platinum member with American Express. So I'm in like the nice lounges. And if I have a layover, I'm drinking free drinks and reading and lounging, and it's fun. I love everything about it. I love layovers. Like if there's a glitch, or, there's a hiccup and you get stuck in a place, it's okay that you're at the place that you were meant to be at that moment. And I just see so many people get aggravated about traveling. I'm like, you're going on a vacation. Why are you upset? And people just get all antsy. You see it all the time in airports. And I love every aspect of it. I always have. I make fun of my husband all the time. I call him my wife, because he's always just like, and he's, crabby because travel plans don't go as planned. But that's the whole fun of traveling, is the journey. It's life. It's a journey.
Well, and I think that's an important thing to reflect on. And one of the things that I've worked on most recently, now you travel with your husband, so it might not be the same, but I've been working with people to put together a travel companion profile.
I love it.
Because there's some people who get that it's the journey, and they're going to embrace each step along the way, and they don't mind because they know that's part of it. And there's other people who are going to be just get me there, because I can't relax and be 100% in this experience until I'm there and settled in. And that's when I start to relax.
Yep. I see them all the time. I see the 2 all the time. I so agree. That's a great thing, the travel companion, because, I actually have a trip in July that I booked. Like, it started out as just a couple of my friends, but then when they found out I was going, I have like 20 going now. And some of them are single girlfriends, because they don't want to travel alone.
Yes.
And that whole companion thing is good. We did a girls trip a couple years ago, and it's cool just to kind of get away and hang with the girls. And I don't know, sometimes I think girls are a lot easier to travel with than boys.
Well, and it can be, and then when it's all girls, it sets a certain tone.
It does.
But they're all going for their own reasons as well, and they all have their own expectations, or so I don't know, maybe a group of 20 is even easier than like a group of 6, where
because they're not all focused on you.
Right.
And you can kind of get off on your own and get together if you want. What I would recommend, and of course, I'm in, there's over 400 suppliers of travel. So I'm in it every single day, and I'm researching and looking around. There's actually photography trips, there's journal trips,
yes,
there's blogging trips, there's all kinds, of course, like women, and this was at the Travel Fest, but there's all kinds of spiritual all women trips. I want to go on one so bad, especially I love photography. So even the writing one would be fantastic. I mean, that's something that you can always improve on, but I just think it would be great just because you have the same interests. You're all traveling and the same, and you can connect and really network.
Agreed. Yeah. When you're going with this common purpose, even if you're going all together to hike Kilimanjaro, you're all kind of going with the same purpose. But that idea, that's why I love going on scuba diving trips, because our primary goal is to dive.
Okay. Have you dove Roatan?
I have.
Is it not the most incredible place?
It is. However, I did get to do Fiji.
Is it better?
Fiji, I got to dive with sharks.
Okay. You win.
It was pretty great.
I haven't dove with sharks yet. No. Okay. You win. I've been afraid that I would not be able to beat the Roatan diving because it is fantastic. And I would recommend that, travelers, if you have not been certified, there's a whole nother world. And I was scared. And that was probably, I did not want to get certified. I was scared out of my mind. As soon as I sold the gym last year, my husband was like, you're going to get certified because we go to all these beautiful places and we're missing out. And I'd done a couple of resort dives, but I did it. And I would highly recommend it, even if it scares the crap out of you, do it, because you will be so thankful when you're in these most beautiful places that you get to see these most beautiful reefs. I can't even put it into words.
For me, this was probably one of the most out of my comfort zone experiences ever. So I'm not a great swimmer. I hate getting my face wet. I have control issues, and what else? Oh, and claustrophobia and all of that.
I'm so glad I'm not alone in this.
Every single issue that says, well, then you probably shouldn't dive. And I really knew that was what I really wanted. I wanted a place to go where I was going to let go of all that messy junk that was clouding my head and just breathe and look at the beauty underwater.
It is. It's so true. I literally had to, when I was going through my open water, and I have rheumatoid arthritis, so my hand is fused and it doesn't bend and my hands don't work the way that everybody else's does. And so when you have to do all those skills, putting everything on and off, it was really hard. And then you have to do it in open water. And so literally, like, I wigged out the first open water, and I did not think I was getting back the next day. I literally took a glass of wine out to the water, and I had to give myself a talk. And I said, you've been through 26 surgeries. You've overcome so much. I don't have much family left. So I've gone through a lot of death in my family. I'm like, this is a dive. You can do this. So literally I did. The next day I went out there and I conquered it. And it was so just invigorating. And every dive that I do, it still is an accomplishment every time I do it, because it was such one thing in my life that scares me, and not a lot scares me.
I agree. And it's been so wonderful. So I actually encouraged my boyfriend to dive, and now he and his son have gone diving. They just finished diving in Egypt, where they dove with the sea turtles.
So cool. So jealous.
Without me. Right. But I will tell you that, that idea of just being, and you're blocking everything else out, and you're focused, you really have two focuses. One is on the beauty around you, and one is making sure that you're doing the right things from a safety perspective.
Exactly.
And your training gets you like 90% there with that safety stuff. So you get to really just be.
Yeah, it's so true. And I probably look like a fish out of water, like when I'm diving, and I don't kick my feet right, and I hold my regulator in my mouth because I have arthritis in my jaw joints, so my mouth gets tired. And so I look completely awkward, but it doesn't matter. It's just about the experience. And so, I mean, I encourage everyone, I mean, even if diving's not your thing, I mean, really immerse yourself like in the culture and what's around, because most places that we've been to, the people are just amazing. The food is so good, and there's so much adventure out there to be had.
Well, and it's really just an example of, I never thought I could, and then I did, and now I always can and will.
Absolutely. I agree.
And, whatever that is, I mean, I've bungee jumped. I've done it once. I don't know that I need to do it again.
Me too.
But there are some of those things out there that it's like, yeah, this seems really out of character. Why don't I try it? And then once you've tried something that's out of character, it's like giving yourself permission to try something else that's out of character.
Yes. Yes. I agree.
And that's how we become adventurous in our own lives.
And it's how we grow, for sure. It's how we grow. I think we become better people for our families, better people for ourselves. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, do you have a favorite solo travel journey that you've done as an adult?
Yeah, it actually, one of my favorite trips was actually stateside, and I went to San Diego, and it was last year. And my husband and I were going through some rough times. The gym was selling, and just, I didn't know where I was supposed to be. Like, I didn't feel like, I had such a restless soul. I had no clue where I needed to be. And I went out there for a conference and took some time and just ventured out into the city alone, walked around the seaport. And I remember walking out when the seaport goes around and you can actually look out over their skyline. I'm sitting on like this little pier that's going to somebody's boat. And I just sat there and I meditated for about 10 minutes. And I was a completely different person when I came home from that trip. Completely different. I took a lot of me time, worked out a lot. I had no one telling me what I should be thinking, what I was thinking. And I just had time to think. And that was a really good reflection trip for me. And San Diego is so beautiful. If you've never been there,
I love it.
Stunning. It's probably one of my favorite cities in the States.
Well, and it's a fun city. It's a city that's great if you're solo. It's a city that's great if you're taking family. And I've been able to be there in both situations. So that's...
Yeah. I mean, I lost my mom at 58. My dad died in November this past year. My brother died at 33. There's a lot of health problems in my family. I got sick at 19. And, I mean, to this day, I still take a biologic, a chemo every 2 weeks, but I'm really good. I'm in remission, and so much to be thankful for. And, you can get so lost in life and work, and whether you have kids or whether your marriage is bad or whatever, it's so important to take those little moments in life and just count our blessings, because we all have a lot to be thankful for. And I think that we get so caught up in just the rat race and, oh, my life is so bad. And, I don't have this and she has that, and jealousy and envy and everything else. It's really good to take those solo trips and just reflect. That's what I did for it. I mean, I was actually going through marriage counseling, and she encouraged me. She was like, you need to get away. You need to go think. And I came back and I stayed married.
Well, and I really think that, we take on a lot. And when we stay at home, that doesn't go away. It doesn't matter how much we try to carve out a little time and a little space to process. So that going away creates some freedom, literally and figuratively, to make different choices.
And I think too, when you're at home, like, it seems like the walls are closing in a lot of the times. And when you get out and you travel, you see that you're just this tiny little speck. And there's so much of this world that you haven't seen and people to meet. And, I always look forward to, who am I going to meet today? Who is going to make an impression on my life? And travel does that for me. I look forward to sitting next to a stranger on an airplane and learning about them and what they do. And you never know who you're going to... I have met some incredible people along the way that I've stayed in touch with, network with, work with. And, I was on this trip. I was teaching in the islands at Christmas, and I went from St. Lucia to Barbados to Grenada. for the month of December. And from Barbados to Grenada, met the lady that was like Secret Service, FBI, retired to St. Lucia. The whole Natalie Holloway case, she was like head of it. I mean, and now she has a bed and breakfast in St. Lucia, and I'm doing social media marketing for her. You never know who you're going to meet or what doors are going to open or who's going to lift your spirits. And it's a journey, and it's an amazing one.
And what's great is that in this day and age, we get to stay so much more easily connected.
Mm-hmm. It's so true.
So we get to choose, and I'm looking at a possible trip coming up that is a little bit sketchier than trips that I normally go on. I am a faculty member with University of Wisconsin Oshkosh, and I've been able to teach a couple times. I've taught conflict resolution down in Bogota, Colombia, which is great. Well, now I've been given an opportunity to go to another war-torn country and teach, and I have to really look into that. And when I started just looking into my social media connections, the people that are like 1 degree connected away from me, I can reach out to and say, I know you've just been there. What do you think?
It's so true. I mean, it's such a different world than it was 20 years ago, just because you do have that social media connection. There's groups and there's the world is awesome because of social media. I absolutely love it. And I think I've been in love with social. My husband always says to me, he's like, you love social media more than me. I'm like, yeah, most days, most days. But it is because, I get to stay in touch with people that I meet from all over the world and connect. And you wouldn't find out about most places if it wasn't from social media and your friends and your network group.
Well, and it's really created a little bit of a smaller world, which is great. But I want to ask for just a second, and I don't think we've had this conversation yet today. How connected do you stay when you're traveling?
Well, unfortunately, I have to stay super connected because before the social media business, I had a gym business and we had about 23 employees. So I always had to kind of at least check emails. With social media, I'm managing about 26 employees. And so it's getting better. And I'm really looking forward to Sri Lanka and India because we're doing a whole meditation, touring the temples. Everything's guided. And I've been prepping my vice president of my social media company. I'm like, look, I am going to unplug for the first time in 12 years for this trip. So just get ready to handle everything. And it will be my first time really unplugging. I've been trying to get better. And even like at home, my husband drags me away from my computer he's lecturing me on the way home from New Orleans on Sunday. And he's like, why do I have to have this talk with my wife that she works too much? And it's just in me. And so I'm trying to like baby steps. Like I'm not going to look at my phone for that afternoon after 6:00, and so it's baby steps.
I get it though. And I'll tell you that I've been teaching online for 15 years.
So,
and I get it. So there's times where I'm online and I'm actually working and teaching. And then I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm actually entrepreneuring. And then there's times where I'm just futzing around or doing whatever I want to do. But there's no way to to put a sign up to say I'm in office or I'm not in office. It all blends together.
It does. It does.
And there was a point where I literally was becoming a workaholic because I was never stepping away from the computer. And that's when I decided to take up roller derby.
Oh, I like it. I like that. Okay. So I'm trying to do the whole yoga meditation thing in the morning. So I have a schedule. I love to write. So I'm waking up you're going to think I'm crazy, but for years I've been waking up at 2:30 and 3 in the morning. I work 18, 19 hours a day. So I'm trying to stay in bed until 4 and I write for an hour. I write a blog every day. And then from 5 to 6, I'm meditating and doing yoga. And then I go to the gym and work out. So I'm really trying this whole new schedule.
That's wonderful. I can't imagine the thoughts that would be coming out of my mind if I started writing at 4 a.m.
So good at 4 a.m. Think about it. There's no phone calls. There's no bings or dings or anything going on.
True.
So my quiet time.
I love it. Yeah. But we all need that. And to create that space, in our time to be able to take and do what we need is super important.
There's an app that I'm using right now called Create Space. No. I'm sorry. Headspace. It's Headspace. Do you know? Have you heard of it? Okay, so it is a guided app. Yeah, it's called Headspace. So it has a little orange dot. I don't know if you can see it.
Got it.
It's awesome. And and it just starts with like 10 minutes a day.
Nice.
And he guides you. The very first day, I'm like convincing my husband, I'm like, we live on the water. I'm like, let's walk out to the pier and let's meditate. And he's looking at me, and it's a little awkward at first. And so we're sitting there, and he lasts all of 1 minute and 36 seconds. And it is one of those meditation things. I'm a huge fan of Tim Ferriss and Steve Jobs and all these really great entrepreneurs. And they always talk about meditation. And so I'm like, okay, I got to really get into this and slow my mind down. So it has been, it's been helping. It's been helping, even if it's just a couple times a week that I'm doing it.
Well, and I'll tell you, Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, was a game changer for me in terms of systems and processes and getting rid of clutter.
It's so true. Hey, Jennifer, Tools of Titans. Have you read it?
Got it.
Have you started reading it?
Oh, yeah.
Is it not amazing?
It's wonderful because it's one of those little things. Like, it's not a book I'm ever going to carry on the airplane because I have the real book and it is a monster.
I thought about buying the real book because my vice president has it, and I thought about buying it. I just have like a reference. I don't like things, so everything's like on my electronic, but that's a book that I think I would buy.
Well, and it's one that, so I like just taking it as a day by day, bit by bit, because there's wonderful little nuggets in it, but you do not want to try and digest the whole thing at once.
No, it's one of those, like I'll read, like if I'm on the elliptical or whatever, I'll read like maybe 2 of his inserts, like a chapter or whatever, 2 of his interviews, his podcast. And then I'll go on and I'm reading something else, like right now I'm reading Adventures for the Soul, I love her book. Love her book. So it's one of those things though, like the way it's laid out with the quotes and the books that they recommend. My goal this year is to read 75 books. So I am at like 27 right now. And I love all the recommendations on there because those are all people that think like me, like
Agreed.
I just love it, and they motivate me, and I'm always the one having to motivate everyone else. So it's really, I love that book. If anybody out there is an entrepreneur, has any type of entrepreneurial spirit, that book is just incredible.
I love it. No, you can see behind me, my bookshelf is creeping hard. Cool. Yeah.
I have a top 50 list of people that I want to have a drink with. And Tim Ferriss is like number 1. I got to meet him. I got to meet him and have a drink.
I will tell you that I have been able to be on a conference call with him with just like 5 other people.
So cool.
So Tim Ferriss is a little bit, I'm a fangirl, and it's pretty great. But, he's also like a little bit wacky.
He is wacky. He
has to be.
Yeah, he's a little bit wacky. Like all of his diets that he does and things like that. And Steve Jobs did as well, but pretty crazy stuff out there. But, and I, you want to hear something funny? I was working so hard, in between the conference in February to the Las Vegas panel that I was speaking at. I launched a new product and I had deadlines, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. In Tim Ferriss's book, he talks about how he goes extreme, cuts out. I'm pretty extreme anyway with my meal plan, but he only does vegetables. Like that's it. And so because it helps him think more clear, because he puts his body into the state of ketosis, and he just feels better. And so I did it for about 4 or 5 days. And I can tell you, like, I was actually thinking a little bit more clear. I wasn't in this fog. So yeah, there's a little rhyme and reason to it.
It's fascinating though. And this is just, I think it's just one of those ways to explore other people's ways of thinking. And I think we can do that through reading different people's stuff, and we can do that through traveling. And there's so many ways to make connections of things that might resonate with us that we're willing to try and experiment with.
I agree. You just got to keep an open mind. You never know who's going to walk through your door.
Absolutely. Well, I want to make sure that people know how to connect with you, Cindy. So how can they find you?
Okay, so I have every social media outlet there is out there. Cindy Ross. I have 3 personal Facebook profiles just because I keep maxing out on friends. So Cindy Lane Ross, Cindy Ross, and then Celeste Lane. That's my middle name and maiden name. And then Stash Your Bag. That's stow in your bag, stash your bag is my travel agency. And then Socialize Your Business, BIZNESS, is my social media company. So if you actually Google Cindy Lane Ross, I have about 900 videos out there. I had my own radio show for a couple years, had a TV show. So there's a lot of information on me. I've made a few cover magazines for Arthritis Today. So you'll be able to see all that good info out there. So if you ever have any questions about anything, feel free to contact me. It's Cindy@stashyyourbag.com.
Cindy, thank you so much for taking the time to share your stories with us today. Any parting words about, embracing the adventure?
Never stop traveling and keep an open mind.
Fair enough. Thanks again for your time today, Cindy. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Jennifer. I look forward to talking to you again.
Wasn't it great to hear the stories that Cindy shared with us today? It's important to remember that when you set your eyes on a goal and work towards achieving it, you can do anything. We've reached the end of today's episode, but the conversation doesn't have to end there. Go to www.transformviatravel.com to join our email list or follow us on Facebook at Transform Via Travel or on Twitter at Go Solo Live. Don't forget to share this episode with others, subscribe to future episodes, and be so kind as to rate and review our podcast. If you've liked what you've heard, invite your friends to listen. If you want to be a guest, reach out to me directly at Jennifer@transformviatravel.com. Until next time, remember, go solo, not alone.